Okay, welcome. So we are here today to have a student panel that addresses issues of cultural difference and cultural diversity here at CCM. I'm Jill Schennum. I'm a cultural anthropologist, and culture is sort of the central concept that we use in anthropology. So it's a major tenet of the discipline. But really, we're here not to hear from me today, but to hear from a number of student representatives who are currently students at CCM and who themselves or whose family come from diverse cultural traditions. And so we really want to hear from them what their experiences have been, both in the country, in the state of New Jersey, and here at CCM. So I think we'll just start off by having students introduce themselves, and each to tell us a little bit, to introduce yourself, say your name, where you or your family are from, and tell us a little bit about how you and or your family ended up here in New Jersey.
नमस्ते, मेरा नाम सनी है और मेरे लिए सांस्कृतिक विविधता जीवन की समृद्धि है. What it means in English is that I'm saying, hello guys, how are you? My name is Sunny, and for me, cultural diversity means richness in life, because when there are different cultures, you get to experience different clothes, different food, etc. So for me, cultural diversity is a richness in life. I came from India in May 2012. My primary goal for coming here was because I wanted to pursue a career in pharmacy, and I have a much better prospect of pharmacy here than in India. So I decided to move here, and the opportunity for me was because my aunt and uncle already stays here, so we had no problem getting visas and stuff. So that's how I came to New Jersey to pursue my pharmacy. That was my major goal of coming here.
Hey. Oi, meu nome é Bárbara Corá Moreira Brito, e diversidade para mim é aprendizado. So I said, hi, my name is Bárbara, and diversity for me means learning, because we are learning with the differences between each other. And I came to US in 2010 to be a nanny. I came through an agency. I decided that I needed to learn English for my career, so I came by myself, left the whole family back then, and to be able to work and learn English here. So I thought that was a good thing.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Al-Watan lil-Jama'a, meaning peace and blessings be upon you. The nation is for the people. This is the nation of 7 seas, united under one flag, and its power is in its diversity. My name is Zeyad, Samir, Abdellatif, Mustafa, Abdellatif. My parents came to America to follow my uncle, who was already a resident in New Jersey. I was lucky to be the first one born in the United States. I'm a citizen, and it has offered me a lot of opportunities.
Hallo julle, my naam is Liezel Engelbrecht en ek is van Suid-Afrika. Vir my beteken diversiteit verskillende mense met verskillende kwaliteite wat saamkom in eenheid. So hi guys, I'm Liezel and I'm from South Africa, and I speak Afrikaans. To me, diversity means different people with different qualities coming together in unity. I first came to New Jersey in 2011 as an au pair, also through an agency. I was studying a little bit in South Africa and wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. So I decided that I'm gonna go overseas for a year. I wasn't even sure where. I had a friend who was an au pair in Chicago, and she said, hey, try this out. It's kind of cool, and it's inexpensive because the family you come live with pay for your flight ticket. And obviously, being a student, you don't have a lot of money. So I picked New Jersey not because I really knew where it was. I remember, I think just before I left, someone asked me, where is New Jersey? And I said, I think it's a town in New York. So yeah.
Báwo ni ẹ̀yin ará ilé? which means, hi, my people. My name is Oluwatomiyin. It means God is worthy to be praised. Me and my family, me, my mom, and my older brother came to US in 97, exactly June 18, 97. Pretty much we came for a better life. Because in my own country, we always have blackouts, so we came to have better opportunities. And for me, since people, when I used to go to school, people used to eat, cornflakes, this different kind of cereal, so I pretty much wanted to have a taste of what they have.
Okay. Muy buenas tardes, mi nombre es Cristian y para mí diversidad significa oportunidad. For those who have yet to take Spanish, that means my name is Cristian, and to me diversity means opportunity. And I think that with me, that's going to be the occurring theme. My family brought me here when I was, it was 2007. I was 12 at the time. And when you're that age, you really don't have a choice of where you go when your parents tell you where to go. And so, yeah, I was brought here just in like a pursuit of dreams and better financial opportunity.
Okay, well, thank you very much. So we have, students that represent a broad variety of countries and cultures, and also a variety of reasons for coming here. Some are born in this country, some came as immigrants, some came to work, some came to study, right? But for all of you, I think that there must have been some things that were very difficult about moving from your home country to New Jersey, or about growing up in a home in which there were cultural differences from mainstream dominant American culture in New Jersey. And I wondered if you could talk about that. What were some things that were difficult? How did you perhaps experience culture shock in some ways? What were things that were shocking to you about sort of mainstream American culture?
So basically, when I came here in 2012, the main difference which I found here was like the system here is different, way different than in the US than in India. Like since my major is pharmacy, I obviously work in a pharmaceutical store, CVS. So when I came here, I realized that the system of like how the prescriptions are getting filled and everything is way different than how it is set up in India. Even the education system, which I'm doing right now in CCM, is way different than what I have in India. In India, we have like if you choose a field of study, you will have a pre-prepared timetable for you. So you will just follow that schedule throughout your year, and you'll have a fixed number of courses that you have to take. You cannot choose whether you want to take that course or not. So basically that was a shock for me, because here we have to make our own schedule. You have to choose our own courses. Fortunately, my cousin helped me with that, so I'm glad that he did. Otherwise, it would be very difficult for me, but that was a major change for me based on the system. Now, culturally, as you know, like if you have an Indian friends, you will know that they are great fans of cricket. And in US, people like football. So when we talk, like when we form groups in India and we talk about stuff, we talk about cricket a lot. And when we form groups here, we talk about football. So when an Indian person gets in a group of Americans or the person who is not from India, I can say basically he's just left out because he doesn't know anything about football, or he doesn't follow, and he doesn't have anything to contribute to that. So I was okay with one-to-one conversation with anyone, but when we were in groups, it was difficult for me because I do not follow football. So that was one major thing for me.
And that could be gender related also, right?
And that could be gender related also, yes.
As a man, you might be under more pressure to talk about football.
Yeah.
Barbara?
So,
I'm not into sports, so even though people think, because I'm from Brazil, I should be so into soccer, and I am not. So a difficult thing for me was definitely being able to get around the town, coming from a crazy city where I grew up to a countryside in New Jersey, and the food when I got here, everything was frozen, canned, and in Brazil we have so much fresh food. And our meals are Thanksgiving meals every day because you have so much at the table at one meal and one time. So it was hard to get used to the food here. And a little bit also, I was on my own, so I didn't have my family to support me here. So the homesickness we have, and because you're immersed into an American family, you don't know them, and you're living in a stranger's house. Even though you talked to them before you came here, that they can show you something through the webcam, like through the phone, but when you're actually living with them, getting to know their culture and their habits, what do? They set the table for dinner. No, what's setting the table? We eat out of plastic utensils and paper plates. I was like, oh, he's standing up. I was like, okay. So you had to adapt yourself and be able to be open to kind of get into it and not suffer too much. So, and it was positive because I was able to learn English faster because all of them spoke English with me. There was no Portuguese around whatsoever, so I definitely learned faster.
So most Arabic culture is Muslim culture, and this nation is not optimized for Muslims. In the Middle East, everything stops for the Islamic prayers, which are 5 times a day. And the same cannot be said for the for the state that's a stone's throw away from the city that never sleeps. It was especially difficult for me here after 9/11. I lived in Hoboken, so you could see the towers from the school that I went to. One day I was an American in the mixing pot, and the next day I was not. And it was something I had to deal with until coming to college, was being called a terrorist, an Arab, whatever, And it wasn't until I came to CCM that I finally found appreciation and freedom from stereotypes.
The difficulties that I experienced when coming here was, well, at first you get into this country and then you realize that you can't quickly go back or go visit home for a weekend. It's a very, very long trip you made. And you're not just here for a week, you're here for a very long time. And with the time difference, if at night I want to call my parents, I can't because or in the afternoon, they're asleep, and you have to take that in consideration. I was very overwhelmed in the supermarkets. We don't have this many options, and you go to the store to buy a soda, and you stand for 50 minutes because which one do I choose? There's so many options. That was one thing, and I quickly had to learn to drive on the other side of the road, and the stop signs and everything's different, the turns. That was overwhelming.
I would agree with that.
And just, there was one thing about Americans that it was different for me. It's still hard, but it's things you have to kind of see in context because Americans are from this country, or you're from here, so you grew up here and know nothing different. But for me, it was hard to see food getting thrown away because, and how the materialistic of many Americans. It was really hard for me to understand that. And we had to pick one present for Christmas, and we had to be very thankful for that one present. And so those are some of the difficulties.
When I first came to this country from Nigeria, I have to get used to the benefit that everyone here enjoys. Just like having lights. My country, you'll be lucky, if you have light, you'll be very happy. You barely have light, even for a single 1 month. Sometimes you go months without having no light. Sometimes you have to use lamps with kerosene in it, or you use candles, stuff like that. That's one thing I have to get used to, because it was something new to me. So other things was the food. My country, rice for instance. In my country, I barely eat rice. I don't eat rice maybe once a month. Was a luxury kind of food. But here, I could eat it pretty much any day, every day, or every week if I want to. And the culture here is different. Because in my country, anyone could be schooled. Could be disciplined by the neighbors. It could be if a kid behave badly, it could be disciplined by a neighbor. Could be spanked, and the parents would be parent will be thankful for that the neighbor spanked their child because it shows that the child is grateful But here, can't really touch a child. People might see it as an abuse. So that's one thing that's different that's difficult to grasp, and that's pretty much it.
Like I mentioned earlier today, I was brought in when I was brought to the United States when I was 12 as a tourist, and my biggest difficulty was the fact that I was considered after my tourist visa was expired an unregistered illegal alien, and that's a title that I had to live throughout high school. I had to be very careful with the things that I did because that could put me in danger. And I mean, could you imagine being 12 and possibly just being sent back home to your country? I come from Colombia, by the way, and then not have your family with you. It wasn't until 2 years ago that I was able to get a protection with deferred action, and that big difficulty of the immigration status kind of ceased. But regarding culture shock, I am the concierge at the Hyatt in Morristown, and I get them all the time. Even now, my favorite one as of now is pretty much I have to assist a lot of observant Jews that come from Brooklyn on the weekend for their Sabbath, and it just back home I don't remember ever meeting anybody that practiced that religion, and just the fact that the Sabbath could affect them completely, and I, as the concierge, if they need me to go upstairs and turn on their lights, their water faucets, open their doors, I have to do it. Even today, when I have done it hundreds of times, it still culture shocks me because here you get exposed to so many religions in general that you learned a lot, you know.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I think it's very interesting hearing our panelists because it brings across the diversity not only of culture, but of how people arrived in this country, why they came here, and the different kinds of barriers and obstacles and challenges that they face because of that. So for example, it's very different being a new immigrant to the United States, working as an au pair, living in someone's home, feeling very isolated and overwhelmed by all of these new norms and practices, and not having many people to talk to is, you know, a very alienating experience and very difficult to deal with. It's quite different an experience than that of being a native-born American of Egyptian heritage who suddenly finds himself after an incident that has literally nothing to do with him or his family viewed in a completely different way by the people that he has everyday interactions with, and having to confront this stereotype that especially applies post 9/11 to young Arab Muslim men in the United States and in New Jersey. So, you know, I think it's fascinating to hear the different experiences people have that relate to not only the culture that they come from, but the ways that they came here and the circumstances that they find themselves in New Jersey. I wonder, one thing people talk about when they talk about culture shock is often people, and I'm very amused about your story of turning lights on for Orthodox Jews, because talk about culture shock, right? Catholic, Colombian, and Orthodox Jewish subculture here in the United States. But I wondered if, you know, often, and this might not apply to people born in the United States, but often when people come to a new country or a new culture, because we're not familiar with the norms that, you know, people born in that culture simply take for granted, are part and parcel of their habits, their dispositions, their very way of being in the world, we often make huge gaffes or mistakes. And I wondered if you all have any stories of, you know, major cultural mistakes or miscommunications that happened to you in your experience in New Jersey. And if you don't, that's fine. If anyone does, just if that's something you could talk about.
I don't mind sharing mine, of course. It's funny because I speak Portuguese and I learned Spanish throughout the years, and I think I speak Spanish too. I always say that, but now I don't say that anymore. But people that speak Spanish will understand before I finish my story. And it was actually Spanish trying to speak English and nervous thinking in Portuguese mistake. So I was dating my boyfriend for a week or so, and suddenly I had to meet their family, uncle, dogs, and he's from Ecuador and Puerto Rico, so they speak Spanish. So I was like, oh, that'll be easy. I can totally speak Spanish. Yeah, no way. I walk into the kitchen, everybody looking at me, and this was right after the World Cup. So everybody was looking at me. Oh, Brazil, huh? I was like, no, not Brazilian. No, just born here, American. No way, Brazilian. So anyway, the first question was like, how do you feel about Brazil losing the World Cup? I was like, yes, I'm gonna say in Spanish, and you guys are gonna probably understand what I'm gonna say. Yo estoy embarazada. And I was trying to say, I'm embarrassed of my country, I'm ashamed of my country. My boyfriend turned to me and said, Barbara, that means you're pregnant. I was like, oh my God. I was like, no, I am so sorry. I wanted to make a hole on the ground and put my head in there and never look at them again. I was so embarrassed and not embarazada. So that was pretty funny, and actually broke the ice a little bit. But they understood because they speak another language, so they knew where I was coming from, and they liked the fact that I just tried. At least I gave a try, even though next time I would probably choose my word a little bit better or ask them first, like, I'm thinking of this word, is that right to say this way? And maybe learning with their knowledge. And we all learn with our mistakes, so that's gonna be definitely a word that we'll never forget.
And I think that probably many of you in this room have had a similar experience with language. I mean, one part of culture shock is that when one goes to a different country and isn't fluent yet in the language, one always feels a little incompetent, right? You're constantly feeling like you're unable to communicate as an adult. You're slightly adolescent and a bit incompetent, and that's a very difficult feeling. And then to make mistakes like that, I think many of us have made mistakes. I know I, for once, called the Pope a potato, so. Does anyone else have any stories of those kinds of cultural miscommunication?
I don't really have much of my own that I can think of, but when you get to a country, you go find other South Africans, and then you guys talk about these stories and what happened to them. So one story I heard was a woman who, she was in church, and this is, in South Africa, if we're very, like, you would talk to the people next to you, we're very social like that, even if you don't know them. And she was sitting in church and it got a little boring, and she thought she's just gonna take a little nap, but she wanted to tell the man next to her, just wake her up when church is over. So we would just say, like, to knock on someone to wake him up. So she whispered to him, just knock me up after church.
Oh boy.
So he wasn't very amused.
We have a similar theme running through these.
And another one, in South Africa, we call potted plants just pot plants. So this man went to the store and he said, I want to buy pot plants. And the salesperson said, excuse me, sir, it's illegal. He's like, no, I know you sell pot plants. I want pot plants. So, and he didn't right away realize what he was saying.
Oh my God. That's crazy.
I have one, but I have a bunch, but I rather keep everything PG-13. But that being said, not necessarily language barriers, but more often than not, and Alpha or everybody that's here with me, I imagine that we all speak multiple languages, and anybody in the crowd, I want to see hands when I finish speaking. Do you sometimes find yourself kind of like, you're speaking in English right now, but you're thinking in your native or in a different language, or when you're communicating with your friends, kind of like they're speaking in English to you, and then for some reason you find yourself translating the things back to your native language, and then vice versa to talk back to them. That is something that happens to me often. So if I'm ever talking to you, if I throw a Spanish word in the middle of something, that's pretty much because my brain is kind of like all wired up and tickled up. But no.
That actually happened to me once because I work in CVS and I have 2, 3 Indian people working there too. So what happens one was that there was something going on with the customer. There was some problem with the insurance and everything, and the customer was yelling at her, the person who was at the register. So I was talking with the pharmacist. I was saying something in Hindi so that she wouldn't listen, so that she wouldn't feel bad. But then I said something in English without even realizing that. And the customer said, "Oh, you cannot say that. You know, I'm going to complain to the corporate about it." So you don't even realize that you
Right.
said something in different language because just you're used to communicating in both languages.
So linguistic mistakes can be mistakes that are common and can lead to real misunderstandings, right? As some of these examples show us, and we can make mistakes in other ways that aren't linguistic, but that are in the ways we behave and practice that violate norms of the host culture, and we're simply not aware of it at the time, and can lead to difficulties. One thing that you all talked about in your discussions of initially coming to the United States and sort of the culture shock and encountering some aspects of mainstream dominant American culture, were some perhaps things that could be critiques of dominant American culture. So you felt a little overwhelmed by the emphasis on material possessions, for example. You were surprised by the amount of processed food as opposed to fresh food in the United States. I wondered if there were other things about dominant or New Jerseyan culture that struck you as something very positive in this cross-cultural experience.
The fact that people from Jersey seem to be more acceptable towards the cold.
The cold.
Yeah, winter is coming right now, and I'm not excited about it at all. The equator used to cross the line back home. I can't think of anything from my personal experience.
I interviewed many immigrants from Puerto Rico, and when they recalled their first experience coming from Puerto Rico to New York, that was the first and foremost on many people's minds, or within the top 5, was getting off the airplane and it being freezing cold. So.
Yes, when I first got off the plane, I landed with other European au pairs, so they were used to the weather, and it was that terrible snowy winter that I got here, and I wasn't used to snow. So I got off the airplane, and the first thing I saw is this like mass, like just so much ice and snow, and I wasn't like, so I was touching it and feeling it and jumping in it, and they were looking at me like, "Come, let's go." This is kind of awkward, and I was like, "This is like the coolest thing," like just so much ice on the ground, and yeah. So, but it only lasted for that winter, and then I was like, enough.
I can tell you something that's very positive about New Jersey is its diversity. Living in New Jersey and being an American Egyptian, although my bloodlines come from Egypt, I can tell you that New Jersey has made me a little bit of everything. And also, from the diversity of New Jersey, it has become, the state has become very forgiving. It understands that people have barriers, whether it be linguistics or cultural. And there's a lot of people lending helping hands, especially at CCM, the Women's Center, doing a great job in helping my mother, who has a language barrier. And there's a lot of other organizations, whether it be federal or community, that do the same.
Something about America and New Jersey that I find just amazing is there's a few, but I like the idea of buying something online and it just gets delivered at your door. We don't have that. It's a bad thing sometimes. But that's amazing. And to think that this country trusts the people who work for this country. And it's controlled, and you can trust the cops. If there's a problem and you call the police, you can trust them. And that is just something that people here, I feel safe, and that's something about New Jersey that I think is very positive, and about the whole of America, that other places that I've been to.
Totally agree, 100%.
So some of the things you point to are kind of the infrastructure that accompanies, moving to a core country, right? Things like there's electricity available most of the time, although those of us who lived through Sandy realize that our infrastructure is not quite as good as it could be, that there are policing systems in place, that there is a government that's relatively stable, that there's a healthcare and educational system that's accessible. What about CCM? You brought up the County College of Morris, right? And so all of you are here at CCM. And I wondered if you could talk, each of you, a little bit about your experience at CCM. In what ways have you found the experience to be welcoming, to be enriching? In what kinds of barriers have you encountered at CCM that are related to your status as an immigrant, or to cultural or linguistic differences? If you could talk to us, each of you, a little bit about your experiences at CCM.
Actually, when I first came to CCM, I did not think that I would get into the groups and everything, but I wanted to say that people here in CCM are very, very friendly, and they help you out a lot. Even if they know that you don't understand something, they will give you a helping hand, as she said, and I find it very welcoming. Also, what I noticed was that on my third day in CCM, I saw a notice which said that we are celebrating the festival of Holi, and I was so surprised that people in CCM knows about Holi and they celebrate it here. Festival of Holi is something you can compare to the Tomatina festival, if you know, in Spain. Like you throw tomatoes after smashing them. You do the same thing with water and color, and not using tomatoes. So it's same thing, but I was very happy to see that you celebrate it here. And I think it's because County College of Morris accepts students from all cultures, and there is a diversity in college itself that everyone is so helpful.
I've been taking classes at CCM since I got here, so almost 5 years ago. I've taken non-credit classes and finally got towards my degree, which I thought I would never be able to because of the language. And I like that CCM takes you through tests and ESL classes to prepare you for the next level. So they don't throw you out there. It's like, oh, you want to apply for college? Yeah, go ahead. No, they prepare you because they want you to be able to understand and work as well as you need. And so there was you need to be confident with what you're studying and with your language to be able to do something else. So I like all the grammar classes, the speech classes, the pronunciation classes, which not help just me, but I feel everybody. So I could actually step by step be able to complete my degree here. So, and the doors are always open, which I appreciate it.
I was surprised, actually, that I didn't encounter almost any barriers being at CCM. The only one would be the difficulty to pray 5 times a day and missing them. If you're having trouble and your professor sees that you're trying, they do their best to make sure you do better. And even though Morris County can be seen as exclusive, CCM is very diverse. And like she said, they do accept people from all over the place, and you see by the crowd, it is very, very diverse.
I started at CCM so I was here as an au pair for a year, and then I decided that I'm going to try CCM out just to see what it's like. And I took one class my first semester, and I was very surprised at how I think the small classes really made it so much easier to get accepted into the community, because I feel like where I struggled, I could email my professor and he knew exactly who I was, and he would email me right back and ask me if I need extra help. And the language in my first semester was a problem. I was sitting with my textbooks and the dictionary, and although I had English in school in South Africa, there was just certain words in textbooks that I couldn't translate. So I had to look those up. And the students, I think knowing that I think American students, they're very interested, and they would ask me, people usually ask, are you British? And then, and then we would start talking about South Africa, and they would ask me if I like Nelson Mandela. And so I think, but something I miss, and I think it's a culture thing, is South Africans are a lot more affectionate than Americans, and I miss that. I feel that in South Africa, the people in your classes, they would become your friends from day one, and you won't walk past each other and not stop and say hello and have three sentences and then go on. And someone the other day said, in America, asking, hi, how are you, is a figure of speech. They don't want to know how you are. You just say, good, thank you, and you go on. So, so it's something I had to get used to, but CCM has been very positive for me.
Okay. I'm kind of like the person that's laid back, quiet. I like to pretty much isolate myself from people. So, like when I came here, I feel like CCM is more like a family. I could get along with people. I don't have no problem with anyone. Like, for instance, before I joined SGA, like I was more, I didn't want to be, like SGA make me feel like I'm part of them. They didn't, even though I'm different, I'm from another culture, SGA made me feel like a family. Like, they didn't make me feel bored. They didn't make me feel like I'm different. They didn't make me feel isolated. They made me feel like I'm part of them. So CCM pretty much feel like a family to me. I don't have to worry about anything. I don't have any problem with CCM so far, even though it's my first semester. Yeah.
With me, I like to say two things. No corporation or school, nothing is really perfect, and it really takes two to tango. And with that, I mean, here at CCM, I have absolutely loved my professors. They really teach you one-on-one if you have questions, and I do feel like that language barrier right here. With my education, I've learned a lot. I've made great friendships, and I have grown as a person, that is. But I have encountered some issues at CCM, and here's where it says to the tango. When I signed up here, I first kid going to college in my family, so really didn't have any aid aside maybe CCM guiding me through. I'm a hospitality major, and I'm finishing this December, and my credits, they will transfer, but most of the schools won't be taking my classes. But that is something that I'm currently working with, and CCM has been very helpful regarding maybe substituting some of my classes right now. I'm getting a dual degree, and they've been really helpful with that. Financially, when I started here, I did mention that I was considered an unregistered alien until 2 years ago. I've been here at CCM 2 years and a half. And what happened was my first semester, out of all the schools here in New Jersey, CCM was actually the only one that took me in. I wanted to continue my education right straight out of high school, like most of us. And CCM was the only one that opened their arms and took me in, of course, at a relatively high price. But I did it anyway, and right now, thanks to a lot of fighting, a lot of arguing and negotiations, I'm considered and I don't have to pay that high price anymore. And I do appreciate CCM for being so cooperative with me, and I hope with a lot of you guys. Shout out to Kaifa. He's one of my favorite professors out there. But yeah, I mean, it's mostly good things rather than the bad things. And it's okay to have some mistakes, you know? That's how we grow from persons, corporations, or whatever entity that there is.
Okay. Well, I think, do you all have other specific points that you felt it was important to make before we open it up to questions?
I would just like to add one point. I think diversity is important. It's not that we should have just one culture. So that, as I said before, it means that you will have variety in life. It means that if you know each and every culture, you can basically celebrate all the year. Like throughout the year, you can celebrate all the festivals because most of the countries have festivals in different time frames. So you can basically celebrate all the festivals throughout the year. So that would be a whole big break.
So you would argue that,
So,
that bringing
yeah.
diverse students to CCM
And
enriches.
learning about the diversity of someone else also helps you to get something out of routine work.
So
Even
you
with
would
your
say,
culture, you wouldn't be just wanted to like stick with your culture. You want something more. So that would help you. The diversity in culture would help you to I can say, to get yourself out of that boredom. Because you don't want to
so it should help to enrich academic discourse, right?
Right,
To have,
it will.
be able to hear diverse perspectives and
Right.
views within the context of the classroom and the college community.
Right, because they have different culture, they will have different points of view on different stuff. So that will, actually help you with academic too. So,
Hopping on the bandwagon about diversity, I like to change my definition. I decided that was opportunity. Not necessarily change, but add on to it. I think diversity, the word itself, it's blind. And with that, I mean that when we talk about diversity, there is a little dark part of it where we're just kind of segregating. We are acknowledging that there are differences. And to me, I said that I am Colombian. To me, it's not necessarily the culture that where you're born, but the culture that you adopt. To me, all of you could be loud salsa dancing Colombians if you like. You know, right now you hear me, you see me wearing a Polish necklace, my Colombian bracelet. All my friends are Italian. That is something beautiful here in the United States and here at CCM. But I like to everybody at least keep in mind that culture itself does not necessarily has to be religious or like where you born, but it's something that you could accept and the practices that you want to do rather than just something that is like a phenomenon dictated to you, you know?
And maybe we could say culture is not fixed and static, but it changes, right? It changes when you move to the United States. It changes depending
Absolutely.
upon your social context. It changes with time.
Absolutely. There is a reason why we're called the melting point and we are adopting everything in one and you choose what you want to do, you know? And I think that's the beautiful meaning of American, you know?
Okay, so maybe we should open it up for questions. There are a number of people here, and I'm sure that you have questions for our panelists. So,
Are there any gestures that don't translate the same between here and in your country?
Yeah.
Just for anyone.
like body language, gestures or body language that would be different in your home country than in the United States.
I think with gestures, greeting, we're huggers. We hug everyone, and Americans don't take that well all the time. And if I met you yesterday and I see you today, I'm gonna want to hug you. Because
I'm hugging the first day.
but I learned that very quickly that no one does that. And if you come from smaller towns in South Africa, we still kiss on the lips to greet our friends. and people here think it's completely weird. So yeah, that's something that, and it's hard because you're here and you feel like you kind of have to leave a part of your personality behind where you come from, that you're only it's only half of you, because now I can't be a hugger here and I can't be what I used to be, so it's hard to adapt from that.
And I would add to the same point because it affects mostly Indians, because India is a conservative country, and if we meet both each other, we are totally opposite. India, if someone like sees one person one day and they see other person, like same person other day, they wouldn't hug, and if you hug, they will be mad at you. Why did you do that?
And it would
Why
be
couldn't you slap?
quite scandalous to kiss a
Yeah.
friend of the other
That
sex
would be
on the
quite
lips,
scandalous,
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So
So is anything considered like impolite that's done here? Like you guys said, you were saying like hugging is not normal or whatever, but like maybe the personal space you have when you're talking to someone, like typically you say when you're talking to someone, you don't want to be right up in their face. You want to be like a couple feet away, or like I don't know, pointing. Sometimes in some cultures, I know pointing is insulting to point at someone. Is there anything like that?
In my culture, the use of the left hand. Also, when speaking to the opposite sex, you should have like a couple feet difference. And what was the last part of your question? I'm sorry.
Pointing. If there's anything like pointing or maybe like saying yes. I know we have a friend that we're in PTK with, and he says in his culture, saying yes is shown by going like this. And saying no is shown by doing this. So it's complete opposite.
Yeah. Well, another one would be greeting like an uncle or actually anybody really, another male, a male and a male. Like the typical greeting would be assalamu alaikum, which is peace be unto you, and then usually a hug and a kiss on both cheeks, which here is very different.
Handshake here.
Yeah, here is just a handshake. Yes.
Somewhere else, handshake.
Like for instance, in my culture, we can't take anything from an adult. You can't use your left hand, even though you are a lefty. You have to use your right hand to accept something from an adult.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're greeting an adult, you're supposed to, like, I say, you totally like lie down, almost like lying down on the floor, even though this person is like a month older than you. That's how you greet an adult. Like you talk, like for a friend, you talk like formally, but if you talk to an adult, you have to use the word like which is like for what you use for an adult, too much.
We something that was hard for me to get used to in South Africa, we call or in Afrikaans, we call anyone, they say 10 years or more older than you, you call them like Uncle John and Uncle or an Aunt Mary. Like you would call them like that, and it's totally disrespectful to just be calling them on their name. So me coming here and now you're just Jack and Jill, and and for somebody who's 30 years older than you, that was really hard for me to get used to.
So there's some kinds of cultural values or themes that are coming out here, right? One is different norms and values about relationships between members of the same and different gender, right? That are, and another theme that seems to be coming out is respect for authority, you know, for age, for people with more authority, and how that is enacted through norms of greeting and through kinship terms and et cetera, that we don't emphasize so much in the United States.
I would actually like to add to that, based on the age. In India, it's I can say not norm, but they generally follow this rule that whenever they see an elder who is in their like relatives, so they will greet them by touching their feet, which basically means that you are asking for their blessings, and they will put your hand on your head and they will give you the blessings. So that's how we do it in India when we greet an elder in our family.
I would like to add to what you said, also respect for women. And my culture is very misunderstood when it comes to women. Like keeping away or wearing the hijab, which is the scarf that wraps around the hair. That's meant for a woman for modesty, right? It's her choice to wear it or not. And the reason for this is for its respect. It's whoever she wants to show her beauty to. It's not us putting this on her to oppress her, you know? It's her choice. If she doesn't want to wear it and show her beauty to the world, then that's her choice. If she wants to save her beauty for her husband, that's also her choice. So what you may or may not have heard before, you know, I'll tell you something, it's not right. We have a lot of respect for our women, and they're very powerful positions, you know, so it's not what it seems to be.
So sometimes Americans assume ethnocentrically, right, that their own way of approaching gender is the only way of granting equality or respect to women, for example. And I think that what we're hearing is that, you know, there are many different ways that respect for women is enacted through norms and practices in different cultures. Brianna? Oh, yes.
I just wanted to say that I actually got the pleasure of meeting Liezel out way before. I saw her at county, and I just definitely noticed how friendly her culture was, because the first time we met, which was out having drinks in Morristown randomly, she literally gave me her whole history. And sitting next to her, no, which was awesome, but we got to exchange that, and then I got to see her here, and she was still just as like crazy welcoming, remembered meeting me, and it was awesome. And Barbara always is answering my questions next to me in class. I just wanted to say thank you to both you girls for, you know, opening up my eyes a little bit.
Thank you.
Angelique?
So, Liezel, you're from South Africa, and Tony, you're from Nigeria.
Yes.
Do you guys find that here in the States, we view Africa as one whole, one just as a whole, not in separate different tribes or different cultures? Do you view it, how did you find it to be perceived?
I think Americans definitely think Africa is Africa, like North America is America. But no, I have never been out of South Africa, and I know very little about other African countries because, yeah, we don't take the train or the airplane to Nigeria as we do to California. So it's just, and people look at me and they're like, "You're from Africa?" Like, I have a friend from Angola and he doesn't look like you. So I would get that a lot, and but yeah, and then I have to tell them that I am South African, I am African American now, but yeah.
Can you repeat your question?
So, my question was, when you came to the States, did you find that Africa, when you told someone that you were from Africa, did someone view Africa as whole, or within each province or state? I don't know.
Country.
Country, yes.
Well, since I've been here for a long time, but people view Africa. Well, I usually tell them from Nigeria, but they view Nigeria as pretty much not as a whole, because even though I don't know about any part of the rest of the Africa, since only came from Nigeria to this country. So pretty much they view Nigeria based on what they know, or I'm gonna tell them if they need asking me a question about Nigeria, I'm gonna tell them what they ask me. I'm gonna ask them the question. Pretty much they view Nigeria as a single country, not as like a body of like a cluster of countries. Pretty much they view Nigeria as a single.
Renata?
Thank you, everyone, for doing this. My question is for folks that have been here for a
I can tell you two things. The first one would be that I lived in the United States for the entire of my life. I've only visited Egypt twice, and both times it was very obvious that I wasn't from Egypt. I wasn't born there. My accent is not the same as theirs. You know, I really did stand out, and I was treated differently, like as though I was not one of them. So that's one thing. The other one would be that after 9/11, I felt though every single day it haunted me, and not only that, but every single day I had to prove that I was an American, and that wasn't something that was happening before. And
Yeah, sorry, go ahead. You guys want to say something? No, sorry. Anyway, sorry, I totally agree. I see myself all the time being Brazilian, trying to be American, trying to lose a little bit my accent, so people wouldn't talk, like 2 seconds in the conversation, people's like, oh, where is the accent from? I was like, you notice accent? No, not really. I'm trying to lose a little bit, so I'm always contemplating, and should I be Brazilian? Should I try to be American? So it's definitely a habit every day.
I do feel myself caught in between.
yeah,
You know, once you leave your country, when I left Colombia, I became el gringo, and when I came here, I became the immigrant. So like, it's like you have to change the meaning of what home is, because then you're just going to be in that conflict caught forever. You know, I have yet to go back home, and I know that when I go back home, they will be treating me differently than when I was there. And I mean, after 8 years living here or so, I feel that like the way that people treat me, at least my acquaintances and friendships, it's so natural, so American, that whenever somebody treats me differently, I could pinpoint it on the spot, you know. And keep in mind, I meet people from all over the world because I work in a hotel. Going back to my Brazilian friend over there, from my take, I don't want to lose my accent. That is part of the charm and personality, I like to think. But I don't know, I like to think about it as like, once you leave where you are born, you lose, like, you don't become like you belong to a country in particular, but then it's when you realize that you belong to the world rather than to any specific place.
So I think that there's some very interesting themes being brought up here. You know, one is this idea of what is a culture. So when we're hearing about Nigeria, we're hearing the concept that there are many different cultures in Nigeria. There's not one homogeneous culture, but in fact there are a number of different tribal groups, tons of different languages, a lot of different customs. What do we mean when we talk about a national culture? I think that we can talk about it, but we also have to think about that, you know, in some depth. And then this other issue of in-betweenness that happens with migration, right? And people really feeling sometimes betwixt and between and having to forge new identities and feeling like when they return home, time has gone by. The river of time has not stopped at home, and returning home, things are different, but also one is different, right? And caught in that state. You were gonna.
I wanted to say that I think coming here and then going back, your eyes open to things that you never realized before. I went back home once, and my town was on strike. The farm workers were striking, and they would burn tires in the roads, and then nobody can go anywhere, and I was very depressed, and I was laying on my bed for a whole day, and what is this place? And then when I thought about it afterwards, I thought this is not the first time I'm experiencing this, but just because I haven't had it for so long, you change in yourself. And a very normal conversation in my neighborhood is people would talk, yeah, did you see that guy walking past like here last night, yeah, he had a backpack, right? The neighbors on the other side, their tools got missing, and like people would talk like that, and I'd be like, this is not normal. Why do people walk around here stealing stuff? And people there don't even realize that you just lock your door and hope they don't come to your house. So, yeah.
Other questions?
I just have one more question because you guys were kind of like talking about your experience and kind of like the culture shock, but I just wanted to see any kind of stereotypes that you guys haven't experienced, like that just is there in your mind that.
I encounter a lot of them. And I like to say that myself, I am a victim of being somebody that, not a victim, but somebody that does do stereotypes. Something funny, I guess, would be the fact that it happened to me here in class too with my fellow classmate. His name is Julian, and we both speak Spanish. He's also Colombian. And of course, we're talking and whatnot, and you never know who is near you, you know? Because to me, let's say I meet people and I don't assume they could speak the same language. And then I'm talking, and then they are able to understand because they speak the same language. And so there are some things that might happen because of that. But stereotypes-wise, I mean, I had an ex that she was just like, "Are you going to be late all the time like all the Spanish people are?" And I was just like, "No, I am one of the most punctual people that there is." But like something that really affected me morally, if that's what you're asking for, from my personal experience, I have yet to experience one.
People think we live in a jungle in Brazil, so and that it's soccer all year long, and Brazil party and all those things. Yeah, it is. But every one of us are individuals, so we kind of exclude ourselves a little bit. When I came, the director that was directing my host family, she said to her, she was looking online for girls, and she's like, "Don't get a Brazilian because they just want to party. They're not gonna work." And she's like, "No, I want a Brazilian. I want a friendly girl. I want somebody to party with me then." So they do. There's a lot of stereotypes, and they think, "Oh, you're not gonna wear a bathing suit or drinking beer. Or like you're not gonna be like drinking outside." Or there's like all those. Definitely a lot of stereotypes with Brazilians.
Yeah, one stereotype that people associate in my country is like with 419s, or known as con artists, or people who do shady stuff. Well, from my tribe, we're not like that. We're more like one of the most hardworking people, especially my mom. She's the one that pretty much raised me and my brother along. Like, she didn't accept things from anyone. It's like she got it from her own dad. So it's like we are the hardworking people. Not like, even though some of us are con artists, but not all are like that. So like most of us are pretty much hardworking people. We strive. We work out. We appreciate every little thing we have. We don't like saying. We don't like every. We don't like. How can I say this? Like pretty much, we appreciate everything we have, no matter how little it is. We might not have much, but we still appreciate it.
There's very many from my race, and my race, my culture, and my religion, but I don't think it's important to list them. I think it's most important to see where they're coming from, and they're coming from ignorance. People not knowing what the culture is, what the religion is, and what the race is really, and the truth behind what's going on, what it is.
I want to agree with you because many people who are ignorant, they ask things maybe because they're interested, but they're asking the wrong questions that could be offensive. And maybe knowing what questions to ask and being sensitive to what you ask someone from a different country could completely change things around. And yeah, there's certain things, like a lot of people ask me, are you from Africa? Why are you white? Or do you have lions walking in your backyard? Do you go to school on elephants? Have you seen Mean Girls? do you like I get so many, and it's so those type of questions are so different from tell me about your culture. What's the beautiful things about your culture? Tell me, and those things I like to talk about, but I don't like answering somebody, yeah, I'm white. So things like that, and to show interest in that way and just change the way you ask the questions.
I like when you talked about the deer the other day in class. It's like, no, I don't have deer walking in my backyard. Like, here you get run over by a deer.
America is a jungle.
Right?
Okay, do we have any other questions?
Did you feel the need to Americanize your name when you came over here?
Oh,
or do you
totally.
like to keep your name the way it is?
That's interesting. I keep mine, but I kind of got a way of saying it. It's because I hear Liezel all the time. So I would introduce myself as Liezel, like diesel with an L. And people get that. And my last name, that's probably the thing that I still sound the most South African, because I say the ch and the r and those things. And I used to correct people. Now it's Engelbrecht. And now I'm just like, Engelbrecht. No, that's good. So.
Yeah, definitely. Mine, it's like we say Barbara, and here's Barbara. So I was like, totally, so many times, what's your name, Barbara? Barbara, because there's a lot of R's in it. It's hard to say. So, definitely.
I lucked out. My name is, well, technically you pronounce it Cristian, but I really don't mind whenever people call me Christian.
Christian.
Yeah, my name is Zeyad Samir Abdellatif, and nobody can get either of them right. So
Okay, that's good.
for Zeyad, I always get Zeyad or something weird or something, right? Abdellatif, people don't even try. And Samir is pretty easy, but I did kind of like shorten it, and everybody calls me Sam, so it's
Okay.
easier, you know.
I like that.
Well, with my name, since my name is Oluwatomiyin, which means God is worthy to be praised. I don't change my name. Like I didn't try to Americanize it. Like people ask my name, I rather tell them. Only 3 people could actually say it fluently without me having to actually say it or spell it out. Or I'm gonna tell them people to call me Tony or call me Black Mambo, as in Kobe Bryant. He's my favorite basketball player.
I like that.
Okay, well, I think that we've run out of time here, but I want to thank our student panelists very much for taking the time to tell us about it.